This is part two of the video that is looking at writing comparison and contrast for short stories. In particular, we're synthesizing a bunch of our skills together here, right? You have to be an active reader while you're reading the short stories. Then you should also be looking at incorporating the correct type of writing cues to help balance the ideas in terms of what points are similar and what points are different. We've already done our brainstorming, and you can notice if you're switched on and paying attention that from the end of the last video I actually took a quick minute and just added a few more things here. So we've picked our topic. Our topic is to compare and contrast two of the short stories. So we've done our selection in terms of picking the two different stories that we want to work with. Now we've also done brainstorming and built out the beginning of our list here. Now I've got both of the stories opened up here in another couple of windows. And so I'm just going to go ahead now and start to write a comparison and contrast paragraph about these two stories. So we always know that we're going to indent. So we might even want to have a title in this case. So we're going to center the beginning. So we'll call this a C&C compare and contrast paragraph about two short stories. We don't need to give away too much. So then we're going to move it back. We're also going to set our spacing down to double spacing. We don't need this to be bold anymore, but we've got our brainstorming chart right here. So we always indent the paragraph by hitting the tab key. Now remember, your topic sentence needs to be clear. We want to include a few things in the topic sentence, both what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, kind of our core purpose. Also, because we're working with an analysis paragraph here, we do want to incorporate the author's names or the story's titles, just to make it perfectly clear what we're going to be working with, kind of like what our source material is. So again, we know we're dealing with APA, the system that we're working with in terms of our formatting system. And so I've already mentioned in my past video that when we put a title of a story in APA, we want to italicize it. And this is a scoopable phrase here, right? So I've kind of set up what we're looking at, then I add the detailed information, and now I want to talk about my purpose, right? Excellent. So we've got the author's name, we've got the first story, the second story, then we're telling exactly what we're going to do. We're going to compare and contrast them or look at similarities and differences. That's just a way of stating that with synonyms. And then this is a compound sentence. So we've got comma fanboys to introduce the second clause. And we talk what our tool, we mention about what tool we're going to use to complete this analysis, is going to be this idea that we've been using about the multi-layered window, or the multi-tiered kind of lens that you can use to investigate writing like this, okay? And it's a good idea when you're doing comparison and contrast like this to do first your similarities and then your differences, or first your differences and then your similarities. If you're spicing the two together, it can get a little bit confusing for the readers. So try to do similarities first and then differences second. So I'm just rereading some of the points I've got in my similarity column here. Okay, so we can say, I was just double checking there to make sure I've got the name right. Even though I wrote the story, sometimes I just tend to abbreviate things in my head. Um, so I'll add that up here as well. So as you're going, just keep checking these things and be smart about it, right? So here we would add in our this is a non-integral citation. Okay, let's just see. Yes, okay, good. So because we're dealing with a kind of overarching idea, we put down the page range. Now, this question did come up. One student asked in an email if I'm citing a work from one of our stories and the example actually covers multiple pages, how do I write that? So for the 6th edition of APA, you use pp dot and then the range of pages just like this. Thank you, Google Documents, giving me a nice little grammar tip there. So sometimes when we're going quickly, it's a good idea to get things down, but we also want to, you know, reread things and edit as we are going, right? So let's keep going here. So notice there I've used one of my cues of similarity, right? So I'm just again checking my page range there. So there we go. This is an example of exactly what you should be doing um, to support a position of similarity. Now, normally you would include at least 2 or 3 examples of similar points. So the first thing I talked about there is how there's a focus on natural forces. which is common to both of them. Now I want to demonstrate a point of difference.